Good afternoon. This afternoon, I'm going to start welcoming everybody here to the RFP. We're getting everything set up and we're getting ready to go live on YouTube. So make sure everybody's aware of that for your privacy reasons. We'll get started in just a minute. Good afternoon. My name is Mark and I'm with Gov Directions. And here we are today with Gov School. We'll get started at 4:01. I want to thank you, those who came early. We are live on YouTube. Just give some basic information. First, if you don't mind maintaining your mute status, this certainly helps out with background for everybody who joins the room. I'll be letting those folks in. We have somebody else watching as well. If you are in the room, then you can ask questions. Feel free to type a question in the chat box or just go ahead and raise your hand and I'll stop and call on you. Raise your hand, technically speaking, that is a function of Zoom and allows you to do that. I usually don't show my image, but I'll do that now just to say hello to everybody here in Atlanta. I'm in the Loft area. The background, the background sometimes it's not the one you kind of imagine, but it's good for this session. So we'll get started here in just a minute. So start asking this, think of those questions. And if you have an RFP that you're really looking at right now and that you want me to discuss today, just drop the link to it in the chat area. I also encourage you to share your capability statement with others here as they join. It's a great way to network. Our general networking session is tomorrow morning at 10. So that's a great way to make some contacts out there.
Yeah. Why don't you keep
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Knowles. I'm one of the founders of Gov Directions, and we're here today to talk to you about one of my favorite topics. I call this one the RFP, the request for proposal. And I've got a little spin on it today. We're going to also use some, generative AI to try to help us with learning how to use tools that can save us time. Hopefully, sometimes I think sometimes it adds to our time. So we'll see. I'm going to show you some of those tools today. And we're going to work together. It's meant to be a session that's interactive, so you can ask me questions. Just some background. First of all, I'll go ahead and say hello to everyone. I've been doing this for 34 years now. I enjoy what we do. Gov Directions was started in 1998 as a way to, basically pull together information that is fragmented. Information is everywhere. We have a home rule philosophy in the United States specifically, and we like to make our decisions locally. And what that does is create a lot of different decision-making bodies, all ththese government agencies out there, some 140,000 total just in the United States that have some sort of capacity to go out there and buy. Doesn't mean they're always going to hire locally, but it does mean that they want to make that decision locally. And so I wanted to share with you kind of how we go about doing that. GovSchool is something we started that built on our aggregation service where we pull all the bids together, but it's a way to help teach you how to win. I actually teach at a graduate level at a major university in the public administration program to help their students learn how to write RFPs. These are folks who want to be asking you to respond in the future. These are contracting officers to be, and I teach them. And so I thought, why don't I just reverse this and teach contractors how to actually read what they're pulling together, and hopefully, and in a good, concise way, and develop this class here. And so we're going to spend about 30 minutes together. If you have any questions as we go along, feel free to stop and ask the question by raising your hand or just interrupting me, and I'll be glad to stop. Those on YouTube Live. You can join us now on our Zoom. The Zoom link as well is there, so we welcome you. But I only take questions in this room here because it's a little simpler in that process. You can actually type your question into, and I'll go back over those questions in your chat box. I've already dropped in a little booklet that I've written about the RFP that you can use to kind of go along. I also gave you a link to the slides that I'll be using today, so in a Google Drive. And I also have given you a copy of my personal capability statement that I pulled together as an example for working with governments and contractors alike. I would just quickly, as we're waiting for others to join us, I would tell you that our schedule is always online and upcoming. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, we'll have a networking hour. You come together and learn about capability statement. I'm actually doing a mini boot camp. It's a 2-hour session tomorrow at 11. If you're a member now and you want to get slotted into that session, just simply contact our office and they'll slot you into the class. Disaster procurement, are you ready? We're seeing the storms all over, or then there's other types of disasters too out there, unfortunately. And I'm going to share with you what you have to do in order to be ready for those contracts that come with those. A lucrative business in just about every sector. Thursday afternoon, we'll have Tammy Bailey Foltz come with us. She's our favorite, how to write the RFP response. And she'll sit with those in our class for about an hour and a half, helping you really pull together a good winning right RFP that can help you in that process. And then next week, we're still forming our Entrepreneur Series group. Professor Chris Hanks does a great job here. This is a 4-part session that he's going to bring together. We'll have a max of 25 individuals in that class. Everybody who participates, our number one class is the ones he teaches over and over again. He hasn't been with us for a while, but we're pulling that back, and we do encourage you, if you need that effort. We're going to focus in on growth right now. A lot of times we focus on just getting started, but here we're going to talk about growth because, managing growth is often tougher than starting a business. And you got to understand really how to do that and have that part there. And Professor Hanks will come with us and share with us what he's going to hopefully accomplish. Look for that. Here's his bio. But he started the entrepreneurship program at 3 major universities and is very well thought of in this field. And so he's going to share his work with you. And then last of not, the 8-hour mini series, I guess, in the Netflix style, how to go about getting involved in this sector. You can click through here at any given time now and watch that or get that link from us. But it's eight solid hours with the training from getting started, actually where you need to be to win a contract. And so that's our GovSchool series classes right now. They change frequently. Always check back when you have an interest in learning more, knowing that they're also live on YouTube. And I'm not going to click there because then we'll get an echo. When you go there, you can actually clicking point. We've got 99 different videos. I think this will be the 100th on there. And I think we're close to 1,000 particular subscribers just for that. So go in there and subscribe if you're not, it'll notify you of our services. GovDirections itself, we're located in Atlanta, Georgia, and we've been in this sector since 1998. And we currently just serve just over 117,000 companies worldwide who are using our services in some way. And if you haven't got our new app, make sure you do that. You could be watching from the app right now. So we're integrating all of our services. It's in the App Store as well as on Google Play, but it's pulled together Gov School and Gov Advice classes and a geospatial analysis of all the individual bids and RFPs that are out there. You can always go here and check it out on the map. We're not a speculative system by any way, any form. These are all active listings, and I'm only showing one per agency right now here in order on the map, but there's over 49,000 active listings right now where they're looking for someone to respond. So when you click through those, I want you to know what you're looking at. Okay, so I teach this class here just as a primer to help you understand, because the number one question I get, and these are folks who want to work with government, is what is an RFP? Okay, so you got to understand what an RFP is if you want to work with government. And the reason why is this is the way that governments interact with you. This is they're talking to you and telling you what they want and what they expect from you in order to do business with you. As you probably know, I talked sometime about theory, but Professor Ronald Coase always is known for the theory of the firm. Okay, and this is basically the concept that we don't do everything ourselves. Okay, we want to contract with each other because you can do it sometimes more efficiently than I can because you're a subject matter expert or you've got the mechanisms in place and you're able to fulfill a need or provide a supply or a service that I need, and you can do it in an efficient way. So this just doesn't make any sense for me to do it all myself. And that's the way governments really are built as well. And so they come in and they provide specific services in the community, but oftentimes, and more often than not, they contract that out to a private company. It's just the way we operate in the United States specifically. We want to have an active engagement between the public and private sector, and whenever we're providing services in our communities. And so that's why you find these contracts. And when they do that, they need to make sure they treat you all fairly. So everybody's going to be treated in a manner that respects your knowledge. It gives you an open competition and an ability to shine. And they want to make sure you're successful. And so when you go through the effort of responding to them, they're hoping to really do want to do business with you. And one of the things that I also get, the second comment I always get after everybody learns really what an RFP is isn't this fixed? Haven't they already made a decision whenever they went out? The truth of the matter is no. Okay. It is not fixed. Okay. If a government wants to do business with you and nobody else, they can do that. They can literally go in and they can write a sole source. They can write a justification letter. They can go and say, you're the one we want to do business with. We're not looking at anyone else. They have that right. And so you step down into government, it becomes easier to do that. Okay. But so just know that whenever you do see a document and you see any of those bids or RFPs on our location, on our website, then you know that it's competitive. I like to point that out so you know that you're not wasting your time, okay? Because these are things you're going to have to operate typically in a quick way to get back with them. And so you want to make sure that, it really is worthwhile to go back through. In fact, I just had a question, talking about other characteristics such as somebody's local or somebody's this. So there's all kind of reasoning behind the decision-making process now, and they do factor in. And sometimes they're not logical. In fact, going back to Professor Coase, one of his favorite quips that I like, he was broadcasting the University of Chicago one time, and his lecture was actually the Ronald Coase lecture at this point. He was as well in his, I think, 90s. And he said, somebody asked me, he said, now, the truth of the matter is these decisions, sometimes, humans are involved. How is that really, what do you really think about humans in the process itself, the real decision makers? And I'm paraphrasing that question, but he said back to them, he says, the truth of the matter is humans are stupid. Okay. And, it's a funny quip back, but and he's just like, we think we're going to be logical, but we're not. So even though you think you got the right proposal and you've done everything right to it, sometimes other things come in to consideration, social economics, other things such as I know somebody, there's a relationship. Those are just typical decision qualifications, you might call them. And so sometimes it just doesn't work out the way you think it's going to work out. And so just understand that in the process, and I always refer back to failure as a way to learn, but know sometimes that even when you fail in government contracting, it's not because of something you did. It could be something because of a lot of other factors are around that. And so I'd just like to bring that to your attention as we start today. And the other part of it is, first of all, it's supposed to be hard. Okay. If it were easy, everyone would do it. This is one of my favorite slides and use it in just about every session I do on government contracting. But it's just a comment that Tom Hanks in the League of Their Own, he was the coach of a softball team, and everybody was out there. Everybody can play softball if you just get out there, but you may not be the best. It's really hard to be the best. And that's what he was saying to them. You got to get out there. If it's easy, everyone do it. If you're going to be the winner, you got to get in there and know it's going to be hard. So don't let that scare you away. And I'm going to use it to help you with some tools to even take out some of the additional fear factor. And one of the ones I use now is Chat PDF. It's basically AI that allows us to go in and pull, maybe turns a 1,000-page PDF into a something that's very simple and understandable, and I can ask it conversational type questions, and it helps me out in the process. A lot of teachers right now, professors, are all concerned on the reverse side, where students are using it to actually write term papers for them and things like that. I've kind of said, hey, let's go ahead and accept it. It's kind of like the calculator. How everybody at first was also concerned about the calculator, then now we all use them. And in fact, we do nothing without a calculator, just about, or using Excel and so forth. And so using these intelligence methods to actually at your advantage, I think is a positive. So I'm going to share some of those with you. But today, the purpose of our session, I'm going to walk you through a request for proposal. Okay? And I'm going to walk you through each section. I'm going to explain to you the importance of that. And then I'm going to use an actual RFP that one of our clients just sent to us as an example. And I really haven't even read through that one in great detail, but I'm going to show you how I would read through it. And then I'm going to show you how I use AI to help me in that process. First, though, there are multiple types of contracting instruments. Okay, the request for proposal is just one. Okay, it's actually my favorite because that's the document you really get to shine in. It gets to really show your knowledge, and they're asking you for your advice and your subject matter expertise. And so it's something you should be prepared to write and actually have fun doing it. So definitely not scare you away. But before you get to that, you're going to see these others out there. These first three: request for information, request for qualifications, and your source of salt, are some very common documents that you will find. Okay, essentially a contracting instrument. I use the word instrument because if they're working, then you're on really the same sheet of music. Okay, and you're really working together with the local government or the state government, the federal agency, and in getting to that point where you can contract. Okay, the first three, they're basically a notification to the market that we're thinking about doing something, and we want to make sure there is a competitive marketplace and that there's folks that are qualified in order to do this. And if you are interested, then send us your capability statement. That's the most often the document they're seeking, or some basic information about your company in an organized way. Okay, your capability statement is a way to do that. If you look at the one I have here, or maybe you're wrong, you're talking about your core competencies, you're talking about your codes that you can meet and satisfy, and you're talking about other types of your executive summary, who you are, your references, and your past performance. So basic information, you're putting it in a concise way. They like to see it on one page document in order to respond back to them. These can be used for just a general something's new that the government's doing, and they want to understand it first. Who all provides cloud services, for example? For a while, that was real new. Even right now, even intelligence, artificial intelligence, chat type software, they're looking to see who does that, who can help us with that industry. We know we kind of need this, and we're hearing how great it is. Now I need somebody to really come in and actually provide it to us. Then the RFQ, or request for qualification. Maybe I'm looking, I need plumbers for the coming year. I need civil engineers for the coming year, or even mechanical engineers, HVAC individuals. I'm going to hire more than one because we've got a big organization. So I need everybody to send me their qualifications who can meet what I'm looking for. And I'm going to go ahead and pre-qualify you to be able to do the business with us. Sometimes they even talk about pricing there, but it's typically more just making sure that you're in a price range and that you're actually qualified to do something. And then source of salt. Oftentimes here, this could be in a situation where they need something that is a tight marketplace. More recently, we've seen collapses in the supply chain. Just to get examples, when we were looking for wipes, we were looking for masks of some sort. Governments need these items. They had a hard time finding them. They're competing against the federal government, state governments. They want to know where the source is at, or even somewhat of a quick emergency. Hurricane comes through, tornado comes through town, fires in the Midwest, some earthquake on the other side of the country usually. But these are items where there's something happens quick, and they need you to respond to them and tell them that you can provide the item that they need. And oftentimes they require all of that product from you if you have it in inventory, or there are method to get it to them through some sort of sub-qualifier. But the first three, all looking to see who can help us in this marketplace. And if you choose to ignore them, oftentimes you're out of the competition altogether. And when you do respond, oftentimes you're the only one who responds, and then you go straight to contract with them. Okay, governments have a lot of flexibility in those types of instruments. So you have to have your capability statement ready to go. If you don't have one, that's the one thing I would suggest that you invest in. Okay, I know that when you first are signed into this marketplace or get started, you get hit with a lot of different items. The first thing you really kind of need to do is find a document or a request that you want to respond to, and then you read through it first, make sure that you know what you know, and then see what you don't know and learn about that first. And then the second thing you're going to quickly realize is that if you want to compete in your marketplace, you're going to have a capability statement. You need to get that done. And it typically runs you from 400 to 1,000, for a one-page document to have it graphically laid out. I have before we get offline here, I got an example. Come tomorrow morning to our session. We give you some examples that you can use, some templates. If you do it yourself, I'm a big believer in do it yourself. And we teach that through all of our methods to help you save money when you first start. The government knows what they need. You just need to give that back to them in that form. Okay. And so make that investment if you haven't made it. The invitation to quote, this is going to be the informal. I'm going to start really getting to stepping up from informal to formal to the most formal. Okay. Invitation to quote. I can pick up the phone, call you, ask you to quote, or I give you 3 days, and I'm looking once I get 3 quotes back, I'm going to call it a day. Okay. I don't have to spend an elaborate amount of time as a contracting officer to get your attention to this. You should be ready to go. It should be it's spelled out. It's easy to understand, and you just need to give me a price, and then we're going to decide if we're going to do business together. Okay. The invitation to bid, a little bit more formal. I'm going to give you more time, or a request for bid, or maybe sometimes get called a combined synopsis solicitation. These are streamlined acquisition processes, almost always looking at the lowest price or best value. Okay. Sometimes it's a combination of really those two. That's what's referred to as best value. So you've got the experience, you've got the aptitude to fulfill their need, and you've also got a good price. You don't have to have the lowest price sometimes that on those best value. You just got to have an approach that meets what they're looking for. And whereas a pure low bid means you can give them the specs, you can satisfy the specs, and you're the lowest cost. And then you get to my favorite, which is the request for proposal. Okay, the RFP. The reason why I like this, as I said earlier, you get to tell them what you know. Okay, you're usually the expert, and you're going to help them with some particular parts of it that only you can provide. And this is something you need to be prepared to respond to. The traditional definition, okay, it's a solicitation to start off with, meaning that it's competitive. You're going to compete with other individuals likely. In local government, somebody asked me this earlier, how many typically respond to a local RFP? I would say on average 3 to 5 that make it through the door. They've done everything was necessary. So it's not you already got a 33% to 20% shot to win that right away. Okay. And going into it. And so remember that at the federal level, it's a lot, of course, more competitive. At the federal level, they tend to have the more traditional combined synopsis or solicitation documents as opposed to a true RFP. They maybe go to RFI and then go to a negotiation stage with you. Okay, but it's a solicitation that's made through a bidding process. Bidding means that you're competing. Okay, understand that it's not just you are the best, of course, but somebody else thinks they're the best too. So you got to measure yourself against your competition. Oftentimes referred to as performance research. Okay. In addition, it's also by an agency. It's by someone interested in procuring your service. And I stress that because they're trying to get your attention. If you meet them, they're going to give you the information you need, and that document should catch your attention. Okay. And it's going to be to them considered a valuable asset or service that they're acquiring from you as a potential supplier. And I would point out in most cases, these governments, when they issue an RFP, they're rarely going to that stage. Okay. Now, invitations to bids, somewhat common for them, bidding things out yearly. But when they issue an RFP, that is traditionally something that's required them to go through an elaborate decision-making process, maybe potentially in the community. They've had public hearings. They've had city council meetings, county commission meetings, a lot of individuals involved at the table. And so when you get at the table, they're serious about it. And they want to be successful. And the last thing they want to do is to hire you and then you can't provide what they're looking for. And it's a failed process. They don't want, worst thing, they'd rather pay you twice what the going rate is than fail. Okay. They don't want a failure in the process. So when they hire you, they want it to be successful. So understand that going into it, take it seriously. Don't do it at the last second. Have everything ready to go and give them your best. And you'll find that will be received well. So when you open up an RFP, this is what you're going to start looking for. Okay. First, you want to read the statement of work. Okay. The statement of work, and find that first. Okay. This is what they're going to tell you. And it may be prayerfully, if they took my class and they've learned, within one paragraph. Okay. Maybe 3 sentences. I'm a big believer in accuracy, brevity, and clarity. And when you read that statement of work right away, it should sing to you this song. It's one of my favorite songs. You're the one that I wanted to find. Okay. Coldplay. Okay. So that should start singing in the back of your head. If it doesn't, you need to move along. Okay. And there's too much, folks, this is a $6 trillion marketplace at the local, state, and federal level. There's plenty of opportunity. Don't waste your time on those that are not singing this song to you. Okay. If you're trying to make yourself fit in that box, it's a wrong play for you. Great. Okay. You'll find it, you'll have success with that. Okay. So make sure the very first thing is a statement of work sings to you. You're the one that I wanted to find. Then take a look at the technical specs. Now here you can match up to a high degree. Okay. Maybe not 100%. Don't be too negative on yourself when it's not a perfect fit. Okay. As well as a list of deliverables. Okay. Here, oftentimes they go in, so this is the ideal situation and no one fits it. Okay. So that can happen. Okay? And so you just look and you see which one you can't fulfill. And if you can't, tell them. Don't ever leave it unanswered. Okay. But they're going to give you a list of technical specifications. And in those, you got to make sure that you can satisfy them. If you can't, you either have to provide a method to meet that. Maybe a subcontractor, reach out to other companies that the governments want you to solve the problem. Okay. Don't just go back to them and maybe not have an answer. Okay. Try to get an answer. If you still can't get an answer, and you got a high degree of match, still go forward with it. I encourage you to do that. But the technical specs, you should be able to fulfill those at the best with some sort of arrangement or teaming. But teaming is received well in government. Okay. So understand that going into it and have subcontractors lined up. And as you start reading RFPs, start clipping those technical specs. Okay. And keep them in a special drive in your Google folder. I've got a Google folder. Hopefully you have one somewhere or something like that. And one of those is labeled technical specs. And over the years, I've dropped them in there. Most times, I don't think I've added to it in a while. It's the same thing over and over and over again. And I refine my answer as I go forward, because you're going to see that a lot of the RFPs will have the same request in each government request is issuing this. And that's what sometimes you think it looks like it's been written by a competitor, and what you'll find is this been copied from a competitor. Right? So it's not that it's that's written for them. It's just that nobody needs to reinvent the wheel if it's the same thing over and over again. Okay, so list your technical specs. Oftentimes the government will give you a numbered system or ordered system. Now, when you respond back to them, I'm a big believer in using that as the outline of your response. Don't make them go look for you and go look for the answers to their bid. Okay. So order it in the same process, because, the first person you're trying to get by is the procurement officer. And you know what that procurement officer is doing? They're making sure you can dot the I's and cross the T's. Okay. And so they're just checking off. So they're looking at RFP on one side and they're looking at the response on the other side. And they're just checking off, yes, answer that question. Yes, answer that question. Yes, answer that question. And that's how you get through to the real decision maker typically, and the person who's going to be hiring you in the local government setting. Okay. And oftentimes you win an RFP, you're getting past that first level. And then the second level is where you're actually making your pitch, So you can shine there. You get to be creative. But when you're reading the RFP and you're responding to it initially, the third thing I'm going to tell you is never be creative. Okay. Shake off the creative outfit, take off the hat. Don't worry about it. Give them the exact thing that they're looking for. Okay. Meet their expectations. Okay. That's important. Okay. And you'll have time to shine, but not at the initial beginning. Okay. The schedule, check it out. Make sure you can follow the schedule. The government is not going to change their schedule. Okay. It's very rare. Okay. There might be an addendum, give you a few extra days. Maybe they made a mistake or something. That's the exception. On one side, that's the part where they're trying to get your response. So that's the first part of the schedule. The second part of the schedule that you're looking for, the second frame of reference there is when you got to deliver. Okay. What do you got to do? How long do you have to do it? And so you got to make sure you can fulfill that. Oftentimes, this is where your pricing starts coming in as well. For example, I do human resource and compensation management work, and that's how I've started in this business and done that for now 30 plus years. I've worked on 350 plus projects in over 30 states around the country. And each one of those, the first thing I have to do is make sure my time fits the schedule that they have in the community and expect it to be done. Because I got to understand that they're not going to move on that schedule. They've got the budgets to worry about. They've got the promises to the city council, the county commission, employees, and so forth. And so I've got to meet that. Okay. Now, if they want me to do something in a month, my price just went up by 60% most likely. Okay. And so I'm going to share with them that. Okay. So yeah, you got your schedule here. I can meet it. Here's my price. If you decide potentially to go longer term, I'm in the second meeting that I'm with them, then I'm going to say, yeah, we can work on the price if you work on your schedule. And then they might have some leeway there. Okay. The list of deliverables in a different section will be the same approach. They'll have a numbered ordered system. And in the process of that, oftentimes they want some of my work done up front, some in the middle, and then a final report. And I'm billing my cycle over 3 periods. Okay. And so that's also potentially for you. If you got a commodity and you're drop shipping it, maybe, once you drop ship it, that's when you get paid. Or, maybe you get paid half up front and paid when it's delivered. Watch for the deliverables, okay, and what's expected. And once again, if you can't do something there, don't just walk away from it, okay? There, speak to what you can't do, okay, and get that to them. And even with the schedule, if you can't do it, even there, you can speak to it and tell them that you can't, and you might not be the only one, okay? I had one just recently, and I saw him, I think it was on Albany, Georgia, and they were wanting something just unrealistic. I'm like, you can't do it in this time frame. Here's what we propose. And everybody else was the same way. Said it was unrealistic. Okay. So know that can happen in the competitions level because you're all being asked to do the same thing. Okay. Contract terms and conditions. Government almost always tells you how they're going to contract with you. But understand that whenever you're reading through that once again, not likely to change. Because they're going through maybe the city attorney, the county attorney, the state's attorney, or even a departmental attorney at the federal level. And those guys are and women, and then I'm using those terms generically, but those individuals are not going to change for you. It's not happening. And so you got to live with those. And your contract terms, it literally is your profit center. Okay. So if you find yourself in a situation where there's a problem and you got to understand how forbearance works. Okay. You got to know how are you going to solve that problem? Because the government's not going to work with you after the fact to solve it. A lot of us got caught with COVID this way. Entering into contracts in February, everything shuts down. Okay. There's some exceptions and there were a lot of give and takes with that, but the contract terms and conditions almost everywhere held solid. And we were all most everybody's able to make that up. Okay. Next, the good thing about working with government, and sometimes unlike the private sector, who kind of expects you to wow them in some way. Here, the government wants you to do it in a specific format. Okay, they're going to tell you it's so many pages, 10 pages potentially, 8.5 by 11, dark font. I mean, there's sometimes it's very specific, no bigger than 12 font or something like that. Okay, and double space. Okay, they're going to give you all these specifics. You got to follow them. Okay, and you got to give that information back to them in the way that they like it. Sometimes they want 3 printouts and a travel disc. I think that's what you should call them. Or they want it emailed, or they want it hand delivered by 12 p.m. Central Time. Okay. Pay attention to those formatted proposals and those restrictions whenever you're responding back to them. Okay. And they almost always will give you an ordered process for responding to them. Once again, don't come back with you got a sample already. I've got one. I'm not going to just ship that off to them. I'm going to restructure my proposal, and I'm going to make it fit in their format. Okay. Qualifications and experience. The only person who can sell you is you. And so I encourage you to start practicing on that. One of the comments I'll get, if I'll be surprised, it's not in the chat box, is, I'm brand new at this. I don't really have a lot of qualifications and experience. What do I do? Well, goodness gracious, if you can start your own company, okay, and you can work in this field, then you've got the qualifications and experience that the government is looking for. You just got to sell it the right way. You've done something before. You didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, I can do this brand new thing. It doesn't happen that way. So step back and sell yourself right. The first one I ever won was in Vermont. Okay. And this is a small town in Vermont. It was not a city account. It was actually an authority. I went to a different level in order to have really good competition, be competitive. I live in Georgia, and the last thing, somebody in Vermont probably wanted to do is hire this guy from Georgia to come up there and do a compensation study for them. But I knew what I was doing. I knew how, I fit this organization well, and said I won the contract. And then I just kept going from that point. But I sold them that time based on some qualifications where I had worked previously in an authority like theirs. And that's all I did. It wasn't not for that type of project that I was doing, but it's just that I had some sort of relationship, and that got me in the door and helped me. And then is cost breakdown. Understand your costing. Okay. The government's going to tell you how they want you to break it down usually. And the good thing is when you're working with on RFPs, it's very rarely a big part of the decision. Okay. But you want to know what that evaluation criteria is going in, because they're going to tell you. And so if they'll say the cost is 20 to 30%, and it's going to be based on this factor, maybe widgets, hours, you want to look at your costs a lot of different ways. Keep that information in once again, a Google Drive. I keep all kinds of costing information, keep it up to date, watch what other your competitors are doing, and know that it's not always just about a number for a dollar number. It's oftentimes about other numbers, such as the number of years their competition has in the business, the number of employees that they have, or contractors that they use. So look around at all different ways that you can cost out in order to understand that and pull that information together. Pay attention to the evaluation criteria. They're going to tell you how they're going to evaluate you. Almost always it's 60% plus on your ability just to follow instructions and deliver the information that they're looking for, and then you can sell yourself. And that's it. It should be a give me to you. Okay. And for anyone. And so know that you got time right now before you even see an RFP. Go ahead and start writing that information up, and you'll find yourself ahead of the game. And I would point out that there is no school of evaluation. Nobody really learns how to do that in any classes or anything like that. Even whenever I teach my class, I just go ahead and give everybody an A. I'm just going into it and say, listen, if that's your concern, we're going to go ahead and tell you that. And they say, oh yes, Professor Knowles, I still want to see the matrix. How are you doing that? How are you giving me that A? And so I have to come up with some breakdown. And anybody can measure. If I get 20 people together who have in different lines of work, you're all going to measure it the same way. So you can you take that and use that to your advantage. Find some friends, have them over for a happy hour maybe, and say, hey, evaluate this proposal for me, and then see how everybody does, and take that criticism and then critique and move forward. And because whatever they give you, they're most likely to a high degree the same thing that the government itself is going to give you. To know that going in, except though, you're going to remember what I told you earlier from Professor Coates, that essentially humans are not logical, and sometimes we just make decisions on a lot of different things, like what color tie you have on that day, and maybe the name that I mentioned, maybe somebody's a football, they like the same football team as you do. You just never know what's going to be the final thing that puts you over the top, but sometimes it does. Okay, and so that's there. And the last thing is, when you see all of this, when you open up an RFP, I want you to remember, here's the third slide I always use: work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. As we know, that's Parkinson's law, and it governs our ability to complain. I think you never have enough time. Okay, if you got 3 days, you're going to take 3 days. If you got 2 weeks, You're going to take 2 weeks. You got a month. I did one the other day. They gave me 3 months. I was fighting till the last day to get it to them and still thinking I didn't have enough time. Okay. Just know that going into it. So be prepared. Preparedness is the first part of the process. Okay. And get that Google Drive going and I've got 6 folders in my Google Drive where I go through and they're all built around this. But one is the statement of works, different ones. One's technical specs. One's deliverables that I have. The other is qualification experience. Then I have a costing section and also have an evaluation of the bids I've submitted. And also some that I haven't even bid on. I just want to see how my competition was doing. I keep that clear there. So as we've talked today, I've given you some tips in the background. First, read the entire proposal when you get it. Okay. Start at that first part, the statement of work. In the case of whether or not you want to move forward, if it's not singing the song, you're the one that I want to find, then just go ahead and stop and move on. Okay. Don't waste your time. If you got that song singing, you say, hey, boy, this is the one. Pay attention to these areas that we talked about, every one of those areas. Okay. And make sure you can fulfill that to a high degree. Matt, you call these indicators of success. If I'm at 60, 70% indicators of success, that means I'm matching up. That's the ones I pursue. Okay. If I'm below that, maybe I'm trying it occasionally, but it's very rare that I move forward with them. And that could be a lot of things, such as, what's your population of the community? I don't ever be like Atlanta. I can look at Atlanta City Hall from where I'm sitting at. I'm in a loft area and I can see the downtown. I don't ever want to work with the city of Atlanta. It's too big. It's not in my cup of my wheelhouse. Okay. But then South Dakota, if it comes up in South Dakota, I love South Dakota. I'll go out there just about any project. And I've worked in just about every county out there, a good number of them, and in most of the major cities, because I like working there. It's things I want to do. The indicator of success, the number one, is that I'm close to a fishing stream at this point in my career. So these are the things that you decide. Okay. But know that, watch for them as you're going through, and read those. Set it aside. Don't do it right away. Even if it's due tomorrow, set aside and come back in later in the evening and do it. Okay. But go ahead and think about it. Talk to others and make sure it is a good fit and it meets what your expectations should be, that you're not entering into something that's over your head or that is not challenging enough for you. Okay. Make sure that it's there, and then complete the proposal. Oftentimes at once, set aside about a 3-hour period and do it. Okay. You can do this if you got everything ready to go. I don't care how complex the project is. You should be able to do that. Okay. And so, I'm going to end with one of the other slides I always use, and that's the only source of knowledge is experience. And you got to get in there. You got to really try and work with some of this. So let's go in there and actually take a look at an RFP. Okay. And I'm going to start off with, what I'm going to call chat RFPs. Okay. Because, it's a play on words, but Chat PDF is a great little tool now that allows you to come in and drop in particular PDFs. And I've got one here that someone shared with me earlier that I have on the screen now. Let's just see what Chat PDF tells me about this particular RFP that's out there. Let me see if I can find it. So what you do is you take that document, and then let's see my download here. I thought I had it saved. Let me just make sure this is the right one. 23. Let me just save it real quick so I know that it's definitely the one I'm working with. It's on my desktop. Okay. And what we do is we take it and we take the RFP and we slide it into the Dropbox there. And it starts reading it. Isn't this cool? I don't know if it's just designed to impress us or not. So I got the RFP in front of us on one side, and then I've got my chat chat over on the left side. See on the right side, and it even gives me some example questions I might want to ask. Okay. In this particular case, what are the specific requirements for mobile food vendors? This is a bid, an RFP that's in El Dorado County. I think that's in California. Yes. And they're looking for mobile food vendors. So what are the specific requirements? And I'll start with that. That's a good question. So it's going to tell me what the requirements are. And I haven't even really ever read. I can find this. So this is the basic details there that they're looking for, and they got attachments for it. And how they're going to be evaluated. Another good question. Remember that conversational questions are the way to address AI of this nature, so that you can ask it. So it's asking a question and then the response back. Kind of, if you've been practicing with Siri or some of those and giving them back, proposals are evaluated internally. They're responsive. They're just reminding me of this. Now, I can go ahead. We're being lazy because they've already got a good outline here and giving me my details. As you see here, they've given me an introduction and the scope of work, proposal format, questions, submittal instructions, evaluation process, things I talked about. Some of these are extra because they are going to have some always specific attachments that they might have in a local government, in the local area of California. Once you do this in California in your field, and you're going to find the same thing over and over again. So you're going to keep that stored in your Google Drive. I told you the 7 folders. I have one of those is forms, okay, and licensing, things like that. My business license, my W-9, things of this nature. They're always going to be required. So they give me an introduction. Some of the same things over there on the top. Are there any website requirements? I'm not going to worry about website requirements. Maybe I'll ask them how many vendors will be awarded, because a lot of times, these type of bids, they'll go in and award. So I'm gonna ask that question, see what chat says to me. Doesn't specify the number of bids awarded. They're going to rank them overall. And since it's not specified, that means there could be more than one. Okay, you know that because they'll tell you. And in fact, it does say here. So chat's still learning. Anticipates awarding one or more licensing agreements. Okay, and so it is more than one. And so it didn't pick up on me. So you can, as I tell students when they're actually using this and they're potentially going to write a paper with it, make sure you read what it says. Okay. So we're not quite there yet. I hear all the buzz, but it's still time. Okay. And so you got your timeline here, your schedule. We could meet this. We got till June 30th, or actually this year was June 9th. I think there's an addendum on this one. And let's just see, are there any addendums? Oh, well, it wouldn't know that because I pulled in the PDF and I wasn't on the actual site itself where it's at. Okay, so here's my scope of work. In this particular case here, it's a little longer than I typically like to see. I like to see it concise, more in one paragraph. But maybe they felt like they had to say more. And you say, well, give them the benefit of the doubt. But it should be that I can easily understand it, and they're going to have a sample license agreement and so forth, and that it's still something that I want to do. Sing the song. Yes, I'm a food truck vendor, and I want to do this because it's a great way to serve the community and make some money. Okay. And we're going to do that. Okay. And then it's going to give me my requirements to participate. I need to make sure I fit these. And once again, at this point, I'm starting to go to high degree. Okay. Can I have a high degree of match? It doesn't mean I have a 100% degree. Sometimes they say I want 20 years experience. Like, I actually have 20 years experience. Maybe you don't. So, but that doesn't mean I'm going to win automatically. It just means that's what they like to have. Okay. And which I doubt they'll do that. It's very rare, in fact. So it's usually minimal types of experience that are required. In fact, I think legally obligated only to do the minimum requirements is what they are able to do. Okay, I'm going in and they want to ask me to do some other things. I'm going to read through it, and I'm going to get in there and they're going to tell me about. It's not ordered exactly the way I do it. It's kind of a little confusing, but the things that they want me to be aware of, and they've laid them out here already. I've got a 14-page RFP for a food truck. So, that's a little bit elaborate, I think. But here we go. We got the proposal format. And they're going to tell me they want my information, my certification, my experience, qualification, same things I just told you. Okay. And then I'm going to have some items I have to include on there. I'm going to have this already typed up in a Google Drive. I've got that. So maybe it's in my capability statement. I'm just going to lift it and put it in there and reframe it for this particular project. Always, just like you're trying to sell yourself for someone to hire you, you've done this, or even, when you're trying to get into college, maybe you had to reframe it in the right way and do that. My references, they only want 3 here. Now I'm going to have, to have a level of 3, I'm going to have about 10 of them, maybe about 7 at a minimum ready to go. Okay. And I'm going to have all this basic information. And this could be individuals that have hired me in the past or that I've worked with, or even that just like me. Okay. I'm going to start in that order. Okay. And they're asking for business references though, but that just means they need to understand your business as a whole. Okay. And when you give them the information, make sure that they're not searching out and that it's not going to somebody's voicemail, that no one ever answers. All of you, I call you sometimes and I go straight to voicemail and it's full. That's the most frustrating thing. Make sure the voicemail is not full. When you're dealing with government and government contracting, it's important people to able to get in touch with you. Okay. Give them the details in a brief description. Make sure that the person knows that you've listed them. Okay. Some basic common sense. You have the references ready to go and just lift it and drop in 3. You don't need to give them 20. Okay. Just give them 3. Okay. In that process. And if you have, like I've now done business in 300 plus areas, I would only pull in bids or references that are in their area or closest to them, or some sort of relationship that I'm dealing with counties, if it's a county, or if I'm dealing with recreation systems, if it's a park and recreation system. Okay. Give them something in common that they can talk to someone about. So when they pick up and they ask a question, they have something else to talk about that just maybe you. Okay. Then that's a good rule of thumb. Okay. They have other documents here that you have to be aware of. They're giving you the ability to questions. If you have questions, how you go about asking those. I'm not a big believer in questions. If they don't cover it in RFP, you're not expected to answer it. Okay. And if there's something that's just not clear, then I would wait potentially to see if they clarify it on their own. I don't necessarily think that I need to help them clarify it. Okay. Just know that. But wait and see if there's any clarification, details. Otherwise, you answer only what they're asking you for. Okay. And you respond. If they tell you they want to go to somebody specific, only respond to that specific individual. Who is the primary contact? Let's see who is the contact for this RFP. Look at it, Matthew Mickey. They got that one. So it's pretty smart AI there. Okay, and so this getting smarter. I'm starting getting worried. Pretty soon you guys are not going to need us. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, here we go in. And then they're going to tell you the submittal instructions. Okay. And this one here is in a third-party provider. I'm not a big fan of these third-party systems. They basically step up and, give away a software in order for the government to come in and use them. And then they pretend like they're giving you something and you need to pay for it. You don't have to ever pay. All of these are free. Every state is now mandated that they provide free access. You do have to register sometimes. Make sure that you understand that you're giving away your privacy at certain levels. Read the privacy statements that you're comfortable with that. If you don't want to go through that process, they're going to have to provide you an alternative to bid. Okay. But, at the end of the day, it's not worth the effort. I think if you want to use the systems, go ahead. Just know you don't have to pay to get to access those. There's only maybe about 4,000 governments nationwide out of 140,000 that use those type of systems. Then we go through this, and you also can submit a hard copy. Okay. So you don't have to go through that system. You can do a hard copy and get that to them. Most states now require that to be given some way, but they want one original copy and one PDF, and then that document. So that's what you want to give them. You don't want to give them 5 copies. Don't give them, 2 flash drives. Only give them 1. Okay. It's your ability to follow instructions. That's going to be something that literally is something the procurement officer is going through that's going to check off. Okay. And if you gave more than 2, this is going to be a negative on you. Okay. You don't have that. I mean, I've had individuals that said sign every page. If they get to sign one page, it's disqualified. Okay. So make sure you do exactly. You don't know what the procurement officer is going to strike you for. Okay. And the more responses they got, the more likely you're being struck for some minor offenses. Okay. Well, that's what I consider minor though. Okay. So you have there going in the sole responsibility. They're basically at this point, they're going through and covering themselves and making sure you understand that you don't follow the instructions. You don't get things there on time, and you don't do this and you don't do that you can't qualify. Okay. And they're going to tell you that because they probably the more they get burned with that in every time, the more they're going to clarify that in there. And look at here, they're going to tell me how they're going to measure me. There's the evaluation, 30 points experience, 20 points. They like your menu on this one. So that's an easy one there. You got good food, I'm sure. Photographs. If you do good photographs, you get 15 points. That's, and that's, you show how much your food is apparently. So look at there, that's 65 points are giveaways. And then your reference, you should have 10. Yeah, you should get that point there, 10. So you automatically get 75 points for just doing the right thing and telling them what they need to hear. Okay. And that's an easy there. Now the competition comes in the licensing fee. It's 25% there. Okay. So if I've got experience and I've been doing this for 30 years or 20 years or 15 years, that's a good amount of time, then I'm going to get real high on this first section, these first 75 points. So I don't necessarily have to be the lowest bidder. on the licensing fee. Okay. And on the reverse side, if I just started, I may not be at the top. I may only be getting 50 of those points of the 75. So I need to be aggressive on my licensing fee. Okay. So that's where you need to watch for the pricing structure of these competitive proposals. And you need to understand what your individual calculations are. I'm missing my word right now, but your analytics. Okay. And so when you go in and review your analytics, you're going to have your mean, you're going to have your median, you're going to have the mode, you're going to have the high and the low, and then you're going to start playing games with the numbers. Okay. The last thing you want to do in a situation like this is leave, 20% on the table, but you're 20% lower than anybody else. I saw that the other day. I actually had 3 contractors. I think one bid around 30,000, one bid around 50,000, and another bid 120,000 for the same project. I'm like, wow, they're all over the board. Okay. The person that bid the low left on the table $15,000, $20,000 that they could have easily walked away with if they just paid attention to where the market was really at. Okay. So it's not about, and so to understand that you can calculate that. Now I'm at a point when I can look at any bid, I can tell you where the 75th percentile is going to be at. And that's not 75% of everybody else. That's between the median and the highest bid. And I'm going to bid at 75 percentile every time. And it's because I've got enough demographic. You don't even have to have that many responses to start getting very close to those numbers. You're just going to get very refined as you move along. You should know your marketplace. And if you don't, you're not doing enough research. All this data is easily available to you. You just know where to go find it. Okay. And you go into I teach a class on price research. You go into usaspending.gov. You're going to actually the minutes of public meetings and agendas. They're always telling exactly what people bid. The information is out there for you to grab. Okay. And the value, if they in the interview is actually going to have a different one. Look at there. You get past the first, the written, and then if you get in there and there's competition, and then they're going to once again measure you again and your ability to respond. Okay. So they got 2 different criteria there. And then they're going to tell you how they're going to select you, when you're going to get the contract, all the details there. And so on. Okay. And it's all there. The rest of it's going to be after you get past that and any given RFP, I'm pretty much 99% sure the rest of it's going to be more pro forma, and you're going to see it in every single contract that this government agency has. Okay. And once you start seeing it, same thing here again, you can't, how you get rejected, what's considered valid, and so forth, what your rights are, the conflict of interest requirements, Public Records Act, things like this. You can see it in every single bid that you look at or RFP that you respond to. Okay. And so there, I walked through with you. I'm going to just stop over here and see if there are any questions. Somebody's in technology. Okay. And they're just telling about their company. Great to meet you there, Julie. And thank you for sharing information about your company. Any questions anyone has today? I have walked through the various documents. I have read through an actual one. We talked about some AI. I'm introducing new projects for you. The chat PDF is just an easy one. We have a quick link to those routinely we're advertising those. It's just something I think is easy to use. It's fun to use. I wouldn't rely on it 100% just yet. But you go in there, it should give you some pointers. And if you don't know how to write responses, I do encourage you to come to our Gov School class. And this is with Tammy Bailey Fold. She does a great job getting you started, showing you how to actually write that response. Yeah, it's the ABCs of writing. It's something everyone can learn, and it's a writing journey. It's always a writing journey, and she helps you along the way and teaches you. And so I do encourage you to join that class if you have time. Any final questions? With that said, I'm going to go and exit YouTube. Thank you for joining us on YouTube and watching this later on. We certainly have appreciated you